He's been on this podcast before, but under a different name, and now he's rising up to spread a positive message through his music. Please welcome Chad Rising to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Yes, love that. I'm doing something today, Heroic.
Doing something. You're here.
Doing something. I could say I'm
You're here.
doing well as I can.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I had you on however long ago on this podcast, but
Almost 2 years.
yeah, it's insane. We've kept in touch since then. I've kept following what you're doing, kept listening to the stuff you're putting out, and it's awesome to be seeing and hearing the growth that you've been going through. But I mean, we have a bunch of stuff to get into, but the first thing I want to say is right there, going to Chad Rising. What sparked this kind of name change or like rebrand?
So when we had met the first time, I was trying again, which I have tried many times. I've had many different names, many different iterations. I was kind of at the end of like trying because it wasn't working. And so I stopped. I stopped like right after this was okay. This was January 2023. I put out a song, we talked, and then shortly after that, like March, I stopped because, or like maybe it was the summer, but I met Paul, who was my music advisor. He helped me get the musicality to the up to the level that needed to be. So that's what started the new name. Everything from my past wasn't at the right, I would say, level. But like I'm
Hmm.
kind of it's funny because I'm putting my old stuff out slowly and methodically now under the same name. But I just needed a fresh start and I needed something that was I was never going to change again because I'm going to be 35 in 2 weeks, in 20 days, just over 20 days. And is that the right math? Yeah, I don't know, October 5th. And I needed something that was going to be lifelong. I needed something that wasn't going to be trendy, something that wasn't clever, something that wasn't immature, but maybe cool but immature. Like I used to go by Honeychrome, which was cool, but like clever.
Yeah.
And I kind of like I wanted to use my real name, my real first name, but I didn't want to use my real last name. So I went through a couple name ideas. I thought about using the name Megaphone because I'm just using this to spread a message. But then that kind of like just didn't it wasn't strong enough. I was like, I want to use my real name because there's power behind Chad. There's power behind like anyone's name. And one syllable is powerful, like share, but just Chad wasn't enough because there already is one, I think. And just it just wasn't enough to differentiate me because that's the trendy thing, right? I don't want to be that
Yeah.
like Jake, David, or whatever. I'm not that. So the term rising it comes from the idea that we are as beings, as energy, as people, as animals, whatever you want to call us. I believe that we are always rising, eternally growing, getting better if we want, and changing. The only constant is change. So, and I like to change up. So that's where the name comes from. It's me and my essence and the idea of eternally growing and rising.
Awesome. No, I definitely agree with this whole like humans are always rising thing or like growing and things like that. And I mean, you can argue for better or worse, but I was just overhearing a conversation with my roommate the other day, and he was talking to someone, and it was like when you look at like what humans as a species have developed from like 2000 to now, it is like rivaling, if not like surpassing every single thing before then. But like 2000 to now, we've developed so much in every space and things like that. And like found so many new things and things like that, invented so many new things, and it's probably just going to keep like developing and discovering new things going
That is
forward. And so, as Chad Rising now and releasing these songs, what is the mission or the goal of this project or this name?
the mission, because it's changing all the time, but it's also the same all the time. The way that it comes out is changing, but it's always the same in that there is a lack of light, of positive charge in the mainstream. And I've been learning a lot since I started Chad Rising, and especially since I was going by my old names, how to handle talking about this. Because this is a dualistic world. We have light and dark. We have perceived good and bad. We have agreed as a collective consciousness to label things as good and bad. Crime, those things are crimes because they're bad for us. Joy, things are joyful because they're good for us. So like we agree on these things. That's part of how this reality can work. But there's too much dark. And I don't think people want to admit that because it's fun kind of to play around in the dark. Um, so if you stick around too long in the dark, you might forget that that's where you are, and then you just get used to it. And I believe that's where we are. And I know I'm not alone in this perception of the mainstream. In my case, I'm really just trying to work within the music business, the music industry, the music field, but it is represented in all of the industries of the world, in fashion, in food, in entertainment of all kinds, in technology. We have slipped far into the toward in the dark, and I believe we need to pull it back to center, at least, maybe even go a little more to the light, um, because and that's the mission, to
Mhm.
infuse the mainstream music industry in my way as much as I can with as much light as possible. And that doesn't mean spiritually bypassing. That means looking at the dark, saying, "Hey, we're in the dark. You guys realize that we're like messing around in the dark here, and we're actually a lot of us are really in pain. Do we want to stay there, or do you want to go back to the light or the center?" So that is my mission with the music, and every song, whether it's about me or about something separate, it's still infused with that light, that positive charge to balance out the negative charge that's prominent and running around all over our culture and society.
Which is awesome because I like personally listen to things definitely that fall into both sides. I listen to plenty of positive charge or good music and things like that, but I mean, I'm not only listening to that. There's plenty of things that I just kind of accept or know or like it is not the way it should be, but I like listening to it. So things like that. But I think it's hard to get that into the mainstream or most people that I look at are like almost all listening to that stuff. And
Yeah.
it's funny in that whole like metaphor of realizing we're in the dark and everything, because it reminds me of something that I learned in school that I never thought I would ever use, but it's coming up now. Do you know about the allegory of the cave?
I knew it.
Yeah.
Tell us, what is it?
The whole like, there are these people living in a cave with like uh basically shadow puppets, like the way people like put up their hands in front of lights to like make pictures in front of the cave, and people are chained in this cave watching that, and they like because that's all they've ever done, that's reality to them. And when one of these guys like gets out and sees the actual world and like trees and birds and the sun and everything like that, and is like enjoying it, and he's like, I gotta get back to the cave and let these people know. And so it's like the cave is sort of that darker music you're talking about, and the world, I'll say, is like this whole positive charge, good music. And he comes back and there's like, and he's like, this is not all that's there. These shadow puppets, these things we're saying are real and way more beautiful than here, they're up here, and they all just think he's crazy or like, no, this is reality. There's nothing else other than this. And so I'm wondering, like, hopefully you can get your message out because I think it's a super important one, and I agree with the message. But how do you go about like fighting the feeling or not feeling like you're the guy like just telling people who won't listen?
Can you ask that question more specifically? Because I think I can answer, but I want to give you the right answer.
How do you not feel like you are saying this message and you try it with like name after name or project after project, and when people don't listen, or there are plenty of people who don't listen, how do you not get discouraged by that? Or it keeps
Mm,
feeling like you want to spread this message?
I do get discouraged. I
There.
It's worse than ever. But that's also what I'll say it's worse than ever for me, but it's also worse than ever out there. People are more vicious than ever. They're less reserved than ever. There's no scruples. Um, I get discouraged. Uh, that's just the fact. And that's part of why it's funny that I'm realizing my anxiety triggers and they are not like linear. It's not obvious what, and this could go for anyone, but I'll just speak for myself. So, like, to answer your question, I'm just learning how to not get discouraged. I don't even have a good answer for that because people are like, and I really appreciate this when people say, don't let the haters win. And well, there's multiple levels here. There's a finding the right audience, hitting the wrong audience, and then haters. But I guess I'll address haters right now, which is the wrong audience. Um, I'll just start with that. I have learned that my biggest anxiety trigger is social media, but it's not, it's like as a creator, it's a different kind of dopamine hit, which you probably understand. Most people that are not creators, they get the dopamine hit of what's the next consumption. And then if they're not consuming, they're not getting that hit, they feel anxiety or whatever, withdrawal. As a creator, my dopamine hit is attention or approval or validation of what I'm doing. Oh, I got another follower. Oh, I got a like. Oh, I got 1,000 views. And at the same time, there's my dopamine hit is getting attention, validation, getting followers, getting that. If I feel like nothing has moved when I open the phone, if I feel like I didn't get any kind of engagement, my anxiety will go, you failed, you're not moving forward, da 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 da, down, 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 spiraling, spiraling. And like if you're checking all the time, which I know is my job to stop doing, and I'm working on that. Like I'm turning my phone off a lot more, putting in another room a lot more. That is a huge trigger of my anxiety. And then you throw in the haters and these people like let alone not having the momentum I want. I have to fight that. I have to work on not letting that get me down. But on top of people trying to tear you down, throw on top of it people trying to tear you down, tear me down. I was just thinking today, and this is touching on the point in an abstract way. I was thinking about like there are lots of people out there that get hate, of course, and this is why I wanted you to ask me about that thing that I texted you this morning, but we'll wait for that. But just
Don't worry, I made a note of it. It's coming up.
okay, um, okay. So discouragement, the haters, add to this discouragement, but and then I'll just segue into the rest of that question. They're not my audience, so getting over that idea that they're not my audience is its own thing. Finding the audience, finding the people that get the message, and facing the people that see the message and don't want it. Like before I started this, I was really going like, I'm in this to change people's minds. I want to change people's minds. I want to find the people that are like asleep and wake them up. But I quickly learned, and even though I was told, I believed it, but I didn't quite believe it. I learned that those people aren't going to wake up. They don't want to wake up. They don't want even let's just call it a different perspective of opinion.
Yeah,
Um, they don't want to change the way they think, even if it might help them clinically, like psychologically, it could help it would help them live a better life, but not not being accepting that I can't change everyone and I'm not going to change everyone was a relief a couple months back that I had. I had savior complex for a long time. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Lots of artists do. Lots of true artists that want to change the world have savior complex. But I got rid of that. So now it is all about finding the right audience, and that's what I'm focusing on. And it's hard to find the right audience because, excuse me, I'm trying to do a spiritual thing in a non-spiritual way. I'm trying to do it's really what I call it is like I'm doing a 5D concepts, putting them into 3D and like trying to merge the two, and they don't get along. They don't really get along. So that's a long way around my challenges of trying to find the right audience. But I also believe that once it does hit, it's going to be massive, and whatever that means, massive. For me, would be making a living off of it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it could go. I want it to go massive, massive, mainstream, massive. So for now, I just hit 1,000 followers, and I'm happy with that. We'll
Big
see how long
win.
I'm happy.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. We'll see how long
And
that dopamine hit lasts.
yeah, no, it's a lot of like when you were talking about constantly checking for likes and things as a creator, like I understand it, but thankfully, like very recently, within like the past 4 days or something like that, I've I've realized that I did something that really oh mostly helped. I still do it a bit, but like on a different platform now. So it's like, oh, I feel good that I'm not checking TikTok constantly all day, but now I'm just on Instagram all day. And it's like it's not really solving it or getting better, it's just kind of changing. But rather than constantly like opening TikTok and checking my clips and everything or posting clips, it's I like got all the clips out of an episode that I wanted to, and I scheduled them out for one a day through TikTok. And it's gotten to the point where it becomes like, you know, mid-afternoon or almost evening of a day. And I realized like, oh, I have not like looked at the clip that I posted yet today. Like because I don't have to worry about like getting on at a specific time and actually manually posting it. It just now does it on its own. So I'm going about my day and it's like, almost the end of the day and I'm like, oh my God, I need to I don't want to say need, but I want to check on this clip, see how it's doing, things like that. And it's less front of mind, which kind of helps. And it's like I want to get that same way with Instagram, but I've run into some problems scheduling content in the past, and so well, that might be a little bit longer until it happens. But I think like having this workflow of I'm really in it, like editing everything that I can, and like schedule it to come out and kind of just like be able to sit back really helps, and I don't get burnt out as easily because I'm not like I'm not constantly giving attention to it and things like that.
Hey, it's Heroek, and this episode is sponsored by me. Well, kind of. If you don't know, I recently started a clothing line called Quest Clothing, which you can shop right now. I'll leave some pictures here on the screen, but we got the core collection, which is just this sleek black and white design on a bunch of products, and then we also have some more like merch style stuff with cover arts for my songs and things like that. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm really excited that I now have it, and so expect a lot more collections, a lot more designs coming out soon. I'll leave a link to it down below, and if you want to stay up to date with any new releases or anything like that, follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram. So go get cool designs like this, or even this, and you'll be helping me support all of this, the podcast, the music, everything. Plus, it just looks cool. We even got this nice big letter design on the back. Look at that. Look how cool that looks. So head to the link in the description to get yourself some Quest clothing, and make sure to follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram for updates with new collections and stuff like that. And now, back to the episode.
Back to what you were saying with like the audience, I think a lot of people either don't realize or have heard, and like you said, don't want to change their view on the fact that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. Because I don't know what, like, I don't know what's, I'm going to explain this because it's going to sound weird coming out. I don't know what's going on with your page or your algorithm, but like every time I get a video view, I follow you and I like your videos, and so it's like gonna come on my feed, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. But I check the comments, and usually, unfortunately, there's someone like hating on it or leaving a negative comment. And something I learned years ago, and I'm honestly a little surprised people haven't, with like how transparent a lot of algorithm things are, is like
Yeah.
if you leave a comment on something that as smart as we think the algorithms are, they're not that smart. If you leave a comment on something, it doesn't read your comment and it's like, oh, this is a negative comment and it didn't like it. It was like, you commented on this, it got you engaged on our platform to keep you on our platform. You like this content, and we'll keep giving you more of that. And so, truly, if you don't want to see a kind of content or a specific creator, just either one, scroll right by it, or most platforms have a like, I'm not
Not
interested
interested
in
in.
this, or honestly, like whatever, it probably changes on the platform, but like even goes so far as to like mute or block a creator. Like there are so many better ways of dealing with it than leaving negative reviews or negative comments, because that's not as, algorithm wise, it's not as damaging as you think it is.
Right. It's not damaging at all. It's helpful. And that's the, I'll just touch on that step too. Most people, whether they're, when they're triggered enough to write a hateful comment, we all experience it. I still experience it. I have to stop myself from either engaging with them or writing my own, not hate comment, but like writing my own comment. Because comments in general are just, I have my, opinion about social media comments in general, the
Yeah.
concept. But most people that are writing the hate comments, they may as well love the thing. It's the same energy. It just feels ickier, but it's the same amount, same force that is, it's a force. It's not the same force, but it's still a force coming forth from them. And it's like they don't realize what they're doing. They don't even realize that they're, most of the time when I'm realizing, and we'll get into this when you ask me the other question, is that people are triggered by me for many different reasons, but like I trigger people like crazy
Yeah.
because they don't understand me and it scares them, or they do understand me and they don't want to believe it. They don't want to the truth. They don't want to feel what I'm making them feel. So I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the last sort of, I don't even think it's a metaphor. The last bit of info on this I'll give, and then we'll get right into another topic, is like when I really like something, when the algorithm goes, you really like this, it's probably because I liked and commented. If you don't like something and you comment, you're still halfway to that really liking it. If you scroll right by and do nothing, you are two steps removed from it. So not only like the whole wisdom saying of the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifferent, but like probably algorithmically, like you just not engaging with something is going to leave more of an impact than leaving a negative comment. But
Yep.
a lot of the feedback, I'll say, that you get is that a lot of people are confused, or they just incorrectly think that you are satire in a way. And I want you to kind of touch on that for a bit and like just talk about satire in general, or just like satirical content, and why you think you're being seen as such.
Yeah. Well, there's so, which one do you want me to answer first?
We'll go with why do you think people see you as satire?
there's a couple reasons. I think some are valid and some are not. And I think there's some, so the ones that I think are valid are that it's low production value. I don't have the ability to look professional right now in terms of anything but the music. The music sounds professional enough to a point. It still can get better. But no one, that's the thing I'll say, that no one has ever said anything about my voice, my songs, my music, the production, like nothing about and that's the only thing that I really
It's all
want to
about
do.
like the videos you're making to promote it.
Or like the concepts or me, which is great. And that's how I know that like it's not the music, right? And I don't put out music that's not good enough anymore. Old stuff, I might put out for my to watch my path, but like I know the music is good and it's interesting that no one talks about the music, which is great. They love it. They can't argue with that. But the low production value of the videos, uh, my off the cuff stream of consciousness, stream of consciousness, like quick little quip videos where I'm just saying something, and usually most of the time it's like I know that I'm going to get some backlash because it's quick and there's no supporting evidence, but it's very true to me at least. And they think that's not the answer to that question. So we'll forget that. They think I'm satire because the words that I use are meaningful. And I think that anything that has a true deep meaning is just deemed a joke. And I can't explain why that is in the length of this time, but I think that's what that has happened. The internet has created, that's one thing, that what I say is so real and so, some of it's deep, some of it's not, but it's so conceptual, so philosophical that they think it's a joke. Their brains cannot process that it's real because of all the crap that's out there right now, as that's considered real. All the aggressive ego music is that's what's considered real, not heartfelt, introspective, curious, philosophical music. Genre aside. So that's one. They don't believe my concepts are real. They think like, oh, let's all like love. How do you want to feel? Like somebody said just the other day, they looked at my shirt and they said, that shirt is wild, LMAO, skull emoji, skull emoji, skull emoji. And I'm wondering what could anyone possibly be thinking this means that it's so wild you're laughing your ass off and dead, 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 dead. Like anyone that uses LMAO these days, as a reactionary comment, I'm automatically disregarding. Like there's just some things that people say that they don't even know what they're saying, and I digress. So that's another thing. Laughing, humor, comedy is like more is like that's respect, like that gets respect, but like real confidence, clarity, and depth and questioning things doesn't get respect. That gets destroyed, that gets diminished. So I think, and then so that's like two or three things, and then I think the biggest thing is that because I look production wise the same as many of those satire artists that are actually doing satire or that are perceived as satire or just that aren't quite there. And I can name a few, but I won't out of respect because there's a couple people that I follow that actually are genuine artists, and I see the qualities in them, but I also see how they're missing some pieces. And people are probably going to say to me right now, like, "Well, you're missing some pieces too." Yeah, well, I think that the pieces I'm missing are not the same that these people are missing because all the art is good. My missing pieces I don't know what to do about right now. I'm doing the best I
Mhm.
can. So I get lumped in with people that are tone deaf and that they don't know the joke is on them, and people that are actually satire. And it's just because of the way that I'm coming across and the things I'm talking about. So the combination of what I'm saying and how I'm saying it is deemed. I used to get like this is an SNL skit. I used to get that a lot. Like this would be perfect for an SNL skit. So though that's in a nutshell, in a big nutshell, why I think I get perceived as satire.
Hey, if you're like me and you're interested in the YouTube or creator space, you should check out The Published Press. The Published Press is a completely free newsletter founded by YouTubers Colin and Samir. They host their own podcast talking to some of YouTube's largest creators. They've edited some of the best content I've seen on YouTube, and now they're sharing their knowledge about the YouTube space with you for free. The Published Press comes out 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with everything going on with your favorite creators and platforms. And like I said, it's completely free. Just enter your email address to receive the Published Press whenever it comes out, and that's it. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below, sign up to the Published Press, and get all the info you need on the industry.
What you're saying is very important of like make sure the art is there or the actual like for anyone in music, if you're promoting yourself on social media, make sure it's not focusing on social media to then promote your art. It's like make the art, make the music good, and then once that is done, or once you have focused on that, use social media and other promotion to guide back to that. And I think there are people who just like spend more time on worrying about the social media aspect of things than the actual music. And something I want to get into because I'm curious to see where it goes. Because this morning, like just a little bit before we got on here, you text me and you're all you just said was like, "Ask me about my ego," and I'm so interested to see where this conversation goes and what you mean by that. So I'm gonna ask you, Chad, what about your ego?
Okay, so this morning actually yesterday I got a comment on my reel or my little clip that said society can no longer comprehend depth in art, music, literature. And I said that that's a tragedy that the people in power and social media have committed. It's like that they pulled a fast one on humanity. Because from my perspective, and it's true, it's not just my music. People want to flip everything. People constantly want to flip around on me and say, because I'm not successful, it must be me. It must be that my music or whatever isn't good enough and that I'm really projecting when in reality is they're the ones that are projecting. But that's not what, anyway. So I got a comment that said, I want to listen to your music because it's not that bad, but oh no, it said your music isn't that bad, which is like an underhanded comment anyway. But your ego makes me not want to listen to it. And I'm like, what ego is he talking about?
That
I have
is
worked
interesting because
very
I feel like you're just doing what everyone else is doing. Like I see plenty of other artists who go on whole campaigns for like a song, and it's like everyone else is doing it. It's not specific to you.
I appreciate that, but I think he's talking about the fact that I am judging. I am observing. I
Got
am
it.
calling stuff out. I am making claims that no one else is, and I look like I'm a nobody, so that like I must be an egomaniac because if I'm like shooting at giants and I'm just a little person, my ego must be huge.
So do you think that that person thinks that you have oh, I was just thinking about it. A like I don't know why
Ego
this just left my brain. Like it's some kind of
complex?
complex, yeah. Of oh my God.
God
Sorry, that was very
complex?
embarrassing.
Oh,
Um
just like a complex.
yeah,
Is that what you're
just
asking?
or acting holier than thou. That's what I wanted to
Holier than
say.
thou.
If they think that you're just like acting holier, like I see all this and you sheeple just can't comprehend it.
That okay, so that is the line that I'm trying to walk very carefully because I do believe there in the spiritual world, right, which is unfortunately like separate from the regular world. The people over there, which I don't even want to do, like that's what I'm trying to like bring it to, I'm trying to be in the middle. They understand the people that have woken up, people that are successful in certain ways understand that there is something going wrong with the way that the world is operating, the way that we're raised to believe these things, to not believe certain things, that everything's fine, or that the only problems are like war, that everything is fine, basically. and that that technology is like solving all our problems, and that all the everything that's out there is just no, it's supposed it's as it should be, and that if you try to stop anything, that you're a censor, you're a fascist, you want to shut people up. I think that if that's what I'm doing, I am saying the same concepts that spiritual world says, but they're like safe. I call it safe. Um, but Marianne Williamson is a great example. She was running for president, and she is from that world, and she's trying to bridge the gap. Like I love her so much. I'm kind of doing that in my own way in the music world. She, I'm sure, gets the same aggressive hate from the third dimension. Um, where am I at? I have information. I have studied. I have lived, experienced. Like constantly, I'm learning. I'm constantly changing my mind. I'm constantly changing my perspective to tweak it so that I don't act holier than thou. But the fact that I am doing all of those things is going to be perceived as holier than thou to anyone who's not. If they're not open to growth, if they don't want to grow, if it's not the kind of content that they want to see, they're going to think that I'm being holier than thou. And I used to be. I absolutely used to be. So, but that's what I'm very careful of this time with Chad Rising, because the Chad Rising brand, I'm meticulous about it and what I say and how I say it. But I'm trying to figure out this way of saying what I want to say, what I feel like needs to be said without saying I'm better than. I'm more knowledgeable in certain ways. I have more experience in certain places, but I'm not
Yeah.
better than anyone. I make it very clear to say that anyone can live this way. Anyone can have these thoughts. Anyone can do whatever they want, which I haven't even like gotten to that point in terms of my message. But so this guy said, your ego gets in the way. And I said, this is where like yesterday I had a bad mental health day because I was just like reacting to these haters and I was firing them off without being mean, but with being very truthful. I said back to them, and they're probably they might see this clip if I post it, which I'm going to post every clip I can of this.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
they said, I said, you think you know what ego is, but you don't. Now that's going to sound like I'm an egomaniac, holier than thou to that person. But the truth is, the ego is much broader and bigger and can be perceived more and is perceived differently. So it's much bigger and broader than modern media wants us to think. Modern media wants us to think that ego means putting yourself first or like
Hmm.
being holier than thou or better than. That is an overactive ego. That is part of ego. But the ego is just here to help, help us be a human and like get food and get shelter and get away from abuse. Like that's what the ego is for. And I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but like the ego is running rampant in society. And it's funny because people that throw the word around are usually the ones with the ego, like the big ego.
Yeah.
And an ego can also tell you you're worthless, you're nothing, you're not, they're better than you. I'll never be that. The ego can be negative as well. The ego keeps you safe for what you think is safe. That's what the ego does. So I try to keep the ego 100% out of anything Chad Rising. Do I have one? Yes. Does it guide me? Yes. Do I need to control it? Yes. But I'm very careful to not put it in the music. At the very least, I don't put it in the music. I might say it,
Yeah.
it might come out when we talk, but it's not in the music. And then the other message I got this morning from a person who doesn't follow me, I've never talked to before, DM'd me and said, the first words were, I think your problem is, and that was the preview. And I was like, okay, I don't need to, I don't want to see this right now. So like I have to
That's
work on,
insane.
I have to work on not seeing, not reacting. I have to work on my own detachment, which I'm doing. But the first thing that I saw, it said, I think your problem is, and like an hour or so later, I went and looked. He said, I think your problem is, shit, what was it? That yeah, he said something like holier than thou. He said, I think your problem is your message is really good, but you act like you're better than everyone else and you know more. And he said, even if you think that's true, I think something like if you did less of that, it would be better. And I said, I didn't ask you. I said, I didn't ask you. And I said, people are scared of me and threatened by me because I'm shaking up their vision, their view of reality, and they don't like the hard truth. And that's it. And then I restricted him. And because I cannot afford another incoming message from that person, right? So I said what I
Yeah.
had to say. I wish I didn't. not that I wish I didn't, but that's what happened. So that was another person that's
But I
coming at
do
me.
I do to a degree. I really admire that confidence that you have to just be like, I didn't ask, just like you said, because you didn't ask him. But it is like I'm trying to get better at this because there are times where I've seen that it's actually negatively affected me. But I used to want to try to just be like a giant sponge for like constant feedback and improvement. So like whenever people would say anything, good or bad, I want to like start a dialogue. I'd be like, okay, like if someone if hypothetically, if I got that same message, rather than like be very self-assured in what I'm doing, being like, I didn't ask you and anything like that, I'd be like, okay, let me know what you think I should like, how I should course correct or adjust. And I've realized that that's not always the best thing because then like
Mhm.
I'll get a message like that and I'll adjust. And then once I do that, I get a message telling like just sending me right back to where I was anyways. I'm like, okay, so I do need some semblance of like my path or my goal and what I think is good, and then take feedback not as like definitively put it in, but like weigh it and see how it goes, as long as it's actual constructive feedback and not, this is bad, period. And things like that.
And have
Um,
they done it? Do they have a literally valid perspective? Do they have the experience? Do they have the specialty to actually know what they're talking about? Or just literally their ego is telling them to say something to you just off the top of their head?
I think
Oh,
it's a
validation.
combination of their ego and honestly, I don't want to say attention spans because that's kind of a compound answer, but just the way that social media has been made to be like, literally, I comment on something and I like
Instant.
scroll past it. It's out of my mind now because I
Yes.
try to like get into more fleshed out dialogues and things like that, and they're like taken aback or not used to like needing two comments or things like that,
Yes.
or like don't know what to do when someone responds. And then so there have been times literally where like on other pages as well. I don't think this has happened on my own page, but like someone will say something and I'll like ask a question relating to what they just said or like ask for clarification, and there will just like be no response because they just don't know what to say about it, or they feel like the comments aren't, which probably is correct, that the comments aren't the best place to like have that kind of dialogue. But it's, yeah, it's, I think, take feedback from good sources, and also what's really helped me music wise off the internet, offline, is find people like that personally to like get feedback from, and who you trust to be like people who you trust to know what they're talking about and have legitimate feedback. And then also people who like, I think people who know me well enough know that they can tell me legitimate criticism, and I'm like, I think a lot of times people are just like, when some friend or some family member shows them something, they want to just be like, that's good, yeah, because like
I know
without,
what that's
even if
like.
they don't actually think it's that good. And I'm hoping people that know me well enough know that they can tell me if something needs improvement or it's not as good, and that I would like to hear that. I would rather hear that and work to improve upon something than you
Good
not tell me
job.
something. Yeah.
Yep.
And I want to get into now, like, another topic we wanted to talk about was just narrative style in music, or the lack of metaphors in music, because I think there are plenty of artists and songs that I listen to that have those metaphors, but then is also, on the flip side, plenty of music I listen to that's just not very metaphorical or meaningful at all. And so I want to hear
Yeah.
your thoughts on that.
First thing that comes to mind is the comments I get quite often are, "You're not even saying anything." And I'm like, that's actually like the opposite. I'm actually saying something, but everybody else is not saying something. So like if it doesn't come through 100% clear, they think they call it word salad or yapping
I
or
wonder how
whatever.
many people who say that you're not saying anything have actually listened fully through one of your songs.
They haven't. And sidebar, that's the other thing. We are judging people's entire lives off of a 10-second clip.
Yeah.
How is that okay? How is that like is that the reality we want to live in? Is that are we really saying that that's the world we want to live in, that where you judge entire existences off of one 10-second clip that you see? Um, so yeah, I think the narrative thing. I'm not the only one saying this. Like I said, Rick Beato, Ted Gioia are two of my like metaphor virtual heroes. I would love to for them to be my mentors, especially Ted. And I'm not putting words in their mouth, but they are saying similar things with proof. As are other people like Dr. Ian Gilchrist. He's like the number one psychologist on what's like wrong with the world right now. Um, Taylor Swift spearheaded this narrative style music, and again, like there's nothing wrong with it. It's just getting stale. It's like everything is a recounting of something that happened or just a straight stream of consciousness, or like it's you're reading out of a journal or a diary. And that has value. It wasn't always like that. But that's also that's what's popular right now. And but that doesn't allow for expansiveness of the mind. That allows for relatability. And I watched a YouTube video the last couple of days talking about why music is like stagnating oh, Damian Keys uh, because we're in this 3 second world, right? You have to hook the person immediately, and usually a relatable lyric is something that hooks something. People are not relating to "The Divide's a Lie." They're not, in that mode of listening, looking for a message, or just and if they don't relate to it, it's not going. They're going to pass because they literally can't comprehend. And that goes back to my thing about they can't comprehend. It's not like, and I don't speak in sarcasm or hyperbole. And I think that's actually now going back to it. People probably think that I'm speaking in sarcasm or hyperbole, and that probably triggers them higher than they really should be. I really mean it when I say society can't comprehend. It's a literal thing. So I think the fact that narrative style writing and songwriting has taken over is putting a ceiling on human and human potential. Like it's putting a ceiling on how expanded our thoughts can be, on like what we are can can conjure up. If we're just talking about the night we had, or the ex we had, or the thing that went right, or the thing that went wrong, but we're just talking about it in a conversational manner, the creativity of like the novelty of that is starting to wear off, in my opinion, and in many other opinions. Like, where are the songs about like it just popped into my head because I'm doing a deep dive article about the moral rot and decay of popular music. And I'm labeling songs as good, bad, or extremely good. Um, we're not even gonna do extremely bad, but I'm starting to see that's so I can prove that things are different than they used to be. And that this is not, we're going down. And is that what we want to do? So anyway, like the song "Joy to the World" by Three Dog Night, the song Bohemian Rhapsody, the song Living on a Prayer, the song, I don't know, even Baby Hit Me One More Time. Like, that's creative. Even like Everybody Backstreet's Back. Like, I'm trying to work up into the decades. Even like Katy Perry Firework, that's a metaphor. Um, I guess espresso is a metaphor, but still, uh, my point is that there's a lack of poetic depth, a lack of diversity, poetic diversity, a lack of imagery outside of just pointing and describing what you're seeing or what you saw. Can we like have some creative like Odysseus, like mythological level, biblical level creativity, imagery going back into pop music because we did have it for a while. And I'm not talking about those kind of stories, although I'm doing a little bit of that. I'm talking about that level of creative imagery and metaphor. It's just missing. Everyone is just talking about their life in the exact way that they would talk to someone else. And that's very relatable, but it's stagnating. And people are going to take what they want from that, and they were going to believe me or not. Part of my mission is to prove it, but at the same time, just do it. Like do the opposite. People always like to say, "Well, if you don't like what's happening, then do it differently your way." And I'm like, I am doing it. I am not just
Yeah.
talking about it. I am doing it. I'm getting fired up. Huh.
Yeah. Them,
So
yeah. It's
I put
like,
my money where my mouth is. I walk the walk, and that's the problem with the 10-second clip. People just don't take their time to go look if I'm actually walking the walk with the talk, and they just think I'm talking the talk, and I'm actually walking the walk. I've been walking the walk for my entire life.
yeah. And it is a big thing of like, I'll talk about positive songs or songs that like are good, have good messages in them and are still popular. And people are like, yeah, but like, I think people either think the songs they're listening to are like that or think there aren't songs like that. And I send them a list of examples and they're like, oh, wow, this is right. Or like, whenever I love when like, because a lot of the artists that I recommend with this like positive or good lyrical message thing usually, not all the time, but usually are like somewhat smaller or like people may not have heard of them. And so whenever like a big like mainstream artist comes out with something like lyrically meaningful, I'm like, yes, perfect, because this is a great like reference for other people. Like this is what it could be. And I'll give a shout out now. I don't know if you've heard it, but a recent song from Halsey called Lucky is like I when I heard that I was like, this is awesome. Not no, like
I'm going to respond to that.
hopefully she doesn't feel that way now, but like for those who haven't heard it, it's this whole thing of like it takes on the perspective of the audience or general public, and they're like, "Oh, she's so lucky. She made it. She's a big artist, and she's talking about how like she's still a person or has problems." And I think that's done in an artistic way or like has lyrical meaning behind it,
I
as
have
opposed
to
to the
jump.
norm. Yeah, go. Yeah, I'll let you go
I
ahead. But
agree with
I like
you.
it as opposed to the norm of no meaning or just talking
I
about
agree.
nothingness.
Now here's where the manipulation comes into play and like the energy part and the spirit part comes into play because do you know the original version of that?
No.
Okay.
What's
Britney Spears. It's a sample. It's a sample. It's an
okay.
interpolation and a sample, and it's the same story. So, well, I'm going to say I actually made a quick video about how I like what Halsey is doing with her new music. That song wasn't part of it, but I can't deny that that message is good. The fact that that's the other layer of what's happening in the music business: samples, remixes, interpolations. There's too much regurgitation. It's like we're doing our own AI without it. Um, but I'm not. We don't talk about that now. But listen to the original version by Britney Spears. You'll understand what's happening and why people my age and older are like, this is a regurgitation of what already happened, which is a shame because Halsey is trying to say something. Her song "Ego" I like. I mean, I have my own. I would. My own perspective, but I'm not. There's nothing I can really say.
That's
I'm
yeah.
not going to tear it down. I like it. I like what she's doing. But so that's what I was going to say about that. What was I going to say? Oh, and just that there's so much. Well, now I'm lost because I jumped in. But what was
That's
the?
totally fine. I literally just now made a note. Like as soon as we get done recording this, I'm gonna listen to that Britney Spears song because I did not know that. But there are so many things that like I feel like sampling has just gotten to such a point now where it's like I thank you for catching me on that because I'm normally the person catching other people where they're like, dude, I love this song and I hear something and I'm like, that is a sample of this on their song and things like that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's to the point. I'm not gonna get into it because we have more. There are better ways to spend our time than just calling out example after example. But I literally started a like a playlist on Spotify that I use. I call it similarity songs, and it's like songs that use the same sample or like even to a lesser extent, just like when I'm listening to something and it makes me think of another song or something so similar and so close, I add like those two songs and like put them next to each other in the playlist. And it's like I'm like collecting these examples of like things that are so completely different that like sound almost identical or are literally the same sample and things like that. And so it's as creative and big as the music world is, it helps me like condense it or seem like there are only like so many snare sounds that you can use. There's so many synths that are out
Yes. Oh
there
my God.
and then like
Love that you're
that.
doing that. I love that you're doing that. And I remember when I first started producing, I was like, that sound is in this song. Oh, you know what it was? It was in 2011, Lana Del Rey's debut came out. Fun's debut album came out. Do you know Fun?
No.
Carry On or some night. Yeah, Carry On. Carry On. No, wait. Some nights I stay up cashing in my bad luck. What's this song? We Are
Okay,
Young.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
Are
Yeah.
Young. Okay. That band, which only had one album, amazing album, but they had a fight, I guess, and they never did anything again. But Jack Antonoff went off and did his own thing, and he did all the Taylor Swift stuff. Da 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 da. So Lana Del Rey, who I loved her first album, but then that's funny. I just realized that these two albums are they stand alone. But they both use the sound of in that era, which was when beat sample packs were just starting to like become a thing, and they use like the sound or like the just like the screen, like a sample, like a screen, like a like
Yeah.
a, and then it would like do the sample or do the delay. But I know exactly what you mean because I was like, wait, this exact same sound. It's not kind of like it. It's the sound.
Because it's one thing to like take a sound or a sample and like pitch shift it or put effects on it or change it up or slow down the tempo and things like that. But like I literally almost laugh when I like hear something that's literally like the same audio or same waveform and it's insane. And the other big thing that I got into a conversation with, yes, literally yesterday was I yeah, I'll say love. I was gonna question if I do, but I love when I like hear songs from like massive artists, and I hear as anyone who uses GarageBand or Logic will know, just Apple loops in it, and it's like and it's so funny. I mean, some of your favorite artists have. I mean, off the top of my head, Travis Scott and Kanye West have used straight up Apple loops in some of their songs. Now where I don't want people getting confused, do not make sounds completely from loops, but like they'll produce 80 to 90% of it and like one layer of it or one sound will be an Apple loop. And like that's
Hmm.
fine, especially if you change it up. And there are times where
Hmm.
artists don't, but especially if you change it up, it's fine.
A fun, and this could be the last one. A fun gem is that Damon Albarn of Gorillaz and Blur, but Gorillaz. Uh, the song "Feel Good Inc." I think it is. It's "Feel Good Inc." or one of their other big early hits. He was like, "That's just a preset on this Casio keyboard," and he has this plastic Casio keyboard, and he goes, holds the button, and it goes. It's not
Yeah.
copywritten,
It's that
like
easy.
it's you can use
Must
it. So
truly
yes.
last one because that reminded me of the hilarious video I saw where someone it was just like these guys in a garage clearly like doing rehearsals or something for like I don't even know if their band like has released music or it's just like a live band but clearly just like jamming in a garage and things like that with instruments. They were like, whoever made like the Taco Bell like ding or the theme needs a raise, and like they had like a I forget the brand, but just like a keyboard on a stand, and they go
Mm.
and just hit one note, and it's just the bell of the and there's like the Taco Bell bell, and I was like, that is insane.
That is great. It makes the world a little bit smaller in a good way.
Yeah.
It breaks down that reality, right? It's like that's a fun way of breaking down the walls that we put up.
And
Unfortunately, I'm
really
not doing
gives
it
the
in a fun way.
confidence to smaller artists of like it's accessible, you can do
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Are you a music artist trying to find a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible? Then check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a super user-friendly and super easy-to-use service that will make your music available in stores like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, Snapchat, everything. Everything you could imagine, it's available. People will even be able to add your songs into their Instagram stories. DistroKid helps you with the distribution, monetization, and promotion of all of your music. Use the link in the description of this video for 7% off any DistroKid package you want. Pick from musician packages designed to help artists get their own music out there, or even get a label package where you can manage up to 100 artists from one profile. So that's more for like managers, labels, and you can also get the musician package that I mentioned earlier, which is more for artists, producers, things like that. And super easy, and you can get 7% off any package right now with the link in the description of this video. So once again, if you're looking for a way to get your music on as many streaming platforms as possible, I'm talking any platform you can think of, get DistroKid and get 7% off right now with the link in the description. Back to the program.
Is there anything else you want to get into? Because I'm down to be here for however long. I got no plans the rest of the day.
Just the process, but I don't even feel like, see, I feel like everyone talks about the music and we were going to talk about the music and we can.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about the divides. Or no, well, there was a few other things.
Yeah, I wanted to once you talked about people like they like I want to hire you and whatnot. I was gonna let you go, but it made me think of something else that like I feel like a lot of people have a hard time or don't know how to do it well to like let people down, or they feel bad if they like contact you and get in touch about something and then don't end up wanting that. And I feel like people need to just start being more honest of like, hey, like and I'm not saying hopefully this isn't the case with them, but like, hey, we wanted to hire you, we were, but this external factor happened, or we found like whatever the reasoning, just like let me know. Or people who are like people who, and I'm gonna say this also as like kind of a warning to other people who might be encountering this, people who are intentionally vague with what they want to give you slash want from you, because I've encountered back to the whole, and I don't want to just bring it back to this or derail the whole we're going down and get into your story and everything, but back to the whole feedback thing of people who are like, hey, I would like to give you feedback on the music, give you feedback on the on your social platforms, whatever. Can we talk? And I'm like, yes, this is perfect. This is what I want. And they're talking about like all these like tricks that they know how to optimize it and things like that. And I was like, okay, like what are those, or what steps should I start taking to get towards that? And they're like, well, if you
Uh,
pay us $60 a month, we can. And I was like, come on, just tell me that
uh-huh.
first, because I don't want to waste my time hearing your nothing sales pitch to try to get me to get something that I'm not going to buy.
or that I already
And
know it doesn't work.
yeah, or
In my case,
that,
I've been through that.
or literally, because I'm not going to call anyone out, but I've done this before. When we're in a Zoom meeting and you're talking to me about this, and you screen share, and your business model is a Google Chrome extension that I see the name of in the top of your corner, and so I say, no, thank you, I'm not going to buy from you. I leave that meeting, immediately go to Chrome Web Store and get that extension, and now I don't need you. So thank you. Thank you for getting on a call with me in that case, because I'm gonna avoid you. And as much as you tried not to give me information or feedback until I paid you, you still did. So
I love that you're keen. You are keen
yeah,
and aware.
yeah. And so, but like, like that's a very long-winded, ranty way of saying just be honest and transparent with people, and don't, back to the whole
Yeah.
feedback from friends and family thing. Don't feel like you need to have something positive to tell them, or need to pamper
Don't
feels
try
like a
to
harsh term, but
um
that's what I'm gonna say. Pamper them.
it's trying to coddle and
Yeah,
take what is it? It's like trying to manage their feelings, right? Their feelings are not your responsibility.
they're
To
their
to a
feelings to
point.
manage.
To to a point. Yeah.
Yeah. When you talked about like New York and being able to live that life, how do you ever see yourself going back to that? Because I know, for one, as someone who has gone into New York City multiple times and visited, I don't ever see myself living in that city environment, because it's just too much for me personally. And it's people do like that city, living in that life, and like, credit to them. I'm not saying that's wrong or bad. I'm saying is, for me personally, I couldn't do it. And so, do you ever see yourself going back to that, or are you like trying to find a calmer, I guess, like whether it's suburb life or just like not in New York City, which is like the city of cities.
There's two reasons. So I don't see myself going back living there. Maybe, if I get all my wildest dreams come true, I'll have a place because I'll probably be going there for business. But what I think has happened is New York City, I caught the tail end of the golden age of New York City. Like the golden age of New York City is over. There's not like the culture has consumed itself. The money consumed the culture to the point where it's sterile. There's art happening and blah blah blah, but that like, New York City is now like the front runner of the ultra neoliberal progressive, like the ultra progressive. A lot of cities are in general. And that's not the life I live anymore. That's not the belief that I have anymore because I was pretty progressive, but now it's just gone a lot further. I'm still kind of here, but I'm more of a centrist, I guess, in terms of where things have gone. So that's one thing that from what I hear from friends that are still living there, socially, it's like a little bit of a scary place if you're not PC, if you're not
Yeah.
DEI, if you're not 100% with the liberal aggressive agenda, it's not a good place to live unless you have, or not a good, but it's you have to be a certain type of person, right? It's
Yeah.
to live there. It's impossible. I don't, it's unaffordable. It's unaffordable for
Yeah, that's
if you haven't,
definitely a big part
you
of
know.
it.
And I think that's what I think. My theory is that once international money, so it's like New York had the millionaires and billionaires of America, and New York had very rich areas. And then what happened over the last 20 years, I think, is that all the millionaires and billionaires of the world came to New York and other cities too. I'm guessing like other cities in other countries that came, like Dubai. And now those mega cities are just cities for the rich. But we're talking about the rich from the entire world, which is why they're still functioning. And and that's my theory. And now that
Yeah.
money has come in and money runs the show, whereas in the past, culture and art ran New York, at least it was like balanced. From what I know, it was balanced. Now the money just runs everything, and the culture is secondary, and the culture that's even there is like somewhat of a facade, and like, whatever, and there.
And it's funny that you say like tail end of the golden years because I was just hearing someone talking about the same thing with Los Angeles. Of they were saying like probably like 2017 to 19-ish, like it seemed like everyone was out in LA. LA was like the place to be, things like that. And now they look at LA and it's like in their eyes, I still really like Los Angeles because I probably have some bias from growing up there, but they look at it as like, you know, not the best place, just not great socially in a different aspect, not in the belief set of people, but in the like socializing is going to parties and things like that and using substances, then it's like a, a I don't know much about his music or his works. I don't really honestly listen to it that much, but I was listening to a podcast with Machine Gun Kelly, MGK, and he was taught he brought up like this whole how much he didn't like the social life of Los Angeles, and he was saying like there were people that I would meet that was like, hey, I don't see you before 8 or 10 p.m. Hey, we've never really talked about like what we do outside of partying and social. Like, hey, what do you do with your life in general? Like, I just like see your face at parties and whatnot, and we have a good time, like doing whatever, but we don't talk about anything or anything like that. And it's like, it's funny how cities seem to have like up and down like eras or times of like, and now I'm not very like in the loop, so I don't know if this is the case, but like I remember like around like pandemic times, everyone was talking about like how people are leaving Los Angeles to go to like Austin or Houston or Dallas and like going to Texas and things like that. And it's like
Yep.
I just don't understand the like whole patterns of cities and what cities are big when and everything like that. And yeah,
I think
it's just something that I thought of once the tail end of golden years.
yeah, I think there's just cities in general. There's an exodus happening, but I think it's going up and down. But I think cities have a very ancient purpose. Like they are not necessarily naturally occurring. They attract the greatest minds and progress and all that. But I think now with the internet, the greatest minds can be anywhere. That's why I think cities are going through a change. And there's pollution, and they're just cold hard steel,
Yeah.
and they're like technology centers. They're like they run on technology, and that is where you still get the best culture. It is, especially music. But the mentality, because we are so isolated, cities used to be communities, and now it's still everyone's like isolated in their own life. Even though they're living in a city, everyone's kind of like more alone than ever, and they're
Hmm.
expensive and all that. So there's this cities are not what they used to be. People are leaving them. People are still obviously going. They're still developing them, but I think as people wake up, if they desire to wake up, they'll leave the city because it's not really a good space for to constantly live in for like a human being.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. If you have work in the city, and if you are doing something, uh well, that's the thing, like the rich people live outside the city and come in for work, for to do their business. The
Yeah.
poor people live in the city. I mean, that's not a hard and fast rule, but if you think about it, all the bankers and the stockbrokers, they have houses in the Hamptons. They don't live in the city. They might have an apartment, but their
It
home
is actually funny you say that
is,
because then the people I think of like in cities are like the up and comers trying to like make it or the starving artists and
yes,
things like that. So it is
yes,
actually funny that you say
or
that.
minorities
I
that
never
can't
thought
make it
about it
out.
like that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I think I'm burnt out.
Yeah, I
We
think that's a
covered a
good
lot of
stopping
ground.
point. We got through so much and I mean like it could always happen again. I mean, feel free. Even this time, it was like I think just some random day you reached out and were like, "Hey, what would you say to like me coming back on the podcast?" And I'm like, always a yes. Like you are always welcome to come back on here. I love
Thank you.
having talking with you, just getting in contact either on here or offline as well, and anything like truly. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a great conversation. If you haven't listened to Chad Rising, go check him out on Spotify. If you know what, actually I thought of, because for years, basically since I started this podcast, I've been trying to think of an outro line, and I think this is gonna be the first time that I use it. And I want your, as we were talking about earlier, I want your honest
Feedback.
feedback. Let me know if it's very corny, because I think it's very corny, but it's what I came up with. So listen to Chad Rising. And Chad, if people are surfing the web, where can they find your wave?
Oh, chadrising.com.
ChadRising.com, perfect. I'll leave a link to that, Spotify, a couple other things down below. Go check them out. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Heroek.